Flooding frustrations out of one South Tampa neighborhood tonight as the water just keeps pouring in. 8 on your side's Victoria Price has been on top of this story from the start.
What if the most dangerous disaster facing a major American city didn't begin with destruction? What if it didn't start with buildings collapsing or sirens screaming or people running? What if it began with something far more subtle, something almost calm, water slowly rising, at first barely noticeable, a few inches, then a little more, nothing dramatic, nothing urgent, until suddenly it's everywhere. What if the real threat isn't how fast it begins, but how quietly it takes over? Because in Tampa Bay, scientists have been studying a scenario that doesn't look terrifying at first, but becomes devastating in minutes. A storm surge, not just a typical coastal flood, but a massive push of ocean water, driven by powerful storm systems, forced inland by wind, pressure, and geography. And under the right conditions, that surge could rise as high as 22 feet. 22 feet of water. To understand what that really means, imagine standing in a one-story house. Now imagine water rising above your roof. That's the scale. And in a region where millions of people live close to sea level, that changes everything. At first glance, Tampa Bay appears calm, clear skies, coastal views, busy streets, a place built for life near the water. But beneath that calm surface lies a critical vulnerability. The shape of the coastline. The bay itself is shallow. Instead of dropping off sharply into deep ocean, the seafloor slopes gently upward toward land. This detail is easy to overlook, but it changes how water behaves. When a storm pushes water toward the coast, it doesn't crash and retreat. It builds, it spreads, it keeps moving forward like a slow moving wall. And because the bay curves inward, it acts like a funnel, pulling water in, concentrating it, amplifying its impact. This is what makes storm surge in Tampa Bay especially dangerous. Not just the height, but how far inland it can travel. Because water doesn't stop at the shoreline. It moves into streets, into neighborhoods, into entire communities. And when it does, the transformation is immediate. Roads disappear, cars become submerged, power systems fail, communication breaks down, and what was once a functioning city becomes a flooded landscape. But perhaps the most dangerous factor is time. Storm surge doesn't always give people the warning they expect. Yes, hurricanes are tracked, forecasted, but the exact impact of storm surge depends on multiple factors aligning perfectly. Storm direction, wind speed, atmospheric pressure. A slight change in any of these can dramatically alter the outcome. And when those conditions align, the result can be extreme. A surge that rises faster than expected. A surge that reaches further than predicted. A surge that arrives before people are ready. This is why scientists describe it as a silent catastrophe, because it doesn't begin with chaos. It begins with normality, people going about their day, traffic moving, shops open, and then water begins to rise. At first, it seems manageable, a flooded street, a blocked road. But then it spreads faster, deeper, and suddenly escape routes are cut off. Emergency services struggle to respond, and the situation becomes critical. Nearly 3 million people live in the greater Tampa Bay region. That's millions of lives potentially exposed to this risk. Homes, hospitals, schools, all located in areas that could be affected by a major surge. And as the region grows, that exposure increases. More development, more infrastructure, more people living near vulnerable coastlines. This growth brings opportunity, but it also brings risk. Because the more that exists in these areas, the greater the potential impact when disaster strikes. Climate conditions add another layer. Warmer ocean temperatures can fuel stronger storms. Rising sea levels mean the starting point for surge is already higher. Even small increases can amplify the effect, making surges more powerful, more destructive. But even without extreme climate scenarios, the risk already exists. The geography alone is enough. A strong hurricane entering the Gulf of Mexico, tracking toward Tampa Bay at the right angle, could generate significant surge. And if that surge reaches its upper limits, the results would be severe. Entire neighborhoods underwater, infrastructure damaged, recovery taking months or even years. But the most critical factor is preparation, because once the surge begins, there is little that can be done to stop it. The only real defense is time to evacuate, time to prepare, time to move out of harm's way. And that time depends on awareness, understanding the risk, knowing evacuation zones, recognizing that water, not wind, is often the greatest threat. Many people underestimate storm surge. They focus on hurricanes as wind events, but history shows water causes the most damage. And in places like Tampa Bay, that damage can be widespread. Emergency planners use models and simulations to predict these scenarios. They study past storms, analyze data, trying to understand what could happen and how to respond. But prediction has limits. Storms are unpredictable, conditions change, and no model can capture every possibility. That is why preparation must go beyond prediction. It must include readiness, clear communication, efficient evacuation systems, public awareness. Because in a real event, decisions must be made quickly, and delays can be dangerous. Traffic congestion can slow evacuation. Confusion can lead to hesitation, and hesitation can cost lives. The idea of a 22-foot surge is not meant to create fear. It is meant to show what is possible, a realistic scenario based on scientific analysis, a scenario that highlights the importance of preparation. Because understanding risk is the first step toward reducing it. In the end, this is not just about a storm, it is about a system, a combination of geography, climate, and human development, all interacting in ways that create vulnerability. And the challenge is not to eliminate that risk completely. That may not be possible, but to manage it, to prepare for it, to reduce its impact as much as possible. Because when the water rises, it does not stop. It does not wait. It moves forward, relentless, and everything in its path must respond. The story of Tampa Bay is still being written. Storms will come, water will rise, and each event will test the system. The only question is, how prepared will the region be when that moment arrives? Because when it does, the difference between readiness and delay could mean everything.